Welcome back to another exciting episode of Nailed It Motherhood podcast. I am your host with the most, Tamara Eldridge. You are listening to season 3 of Nailed It Motherhood, and I'm so excited. This is where we don't have all the answers, but we sure have the stories, we have the scars, and we have the laughs to prove that we are in this together. Here we are, real parents, simply living, learning, and navigating all the joys and the jolts that come with parenting. We're all about growth, reflection, and giving you tools to pour back into yourself. Don't forget to check out the Nailed It Motherhood self-care journal created to help you stay grounded, intentional, and whole on this journey. I'm super excited about that project. But enough about the journal. Today, we're joined by a powerhouse of resilience and perspective. Our guest is a psychologist, author, and mom who brings a unique three-lens view to parenting through challenge. From navigating early childhood with hydrocephalus to supporting families as a psychologist to raising 18-year-old twin boys, she understands resilience from every angle, literally. She's here to share her story, her wisdom, and her new book, Step Away: The Keys to Resilient Parenting, all grounded in the belief that there is always possibility on the other side of challenge. And I love that. Let's welcome to the mic, Dr. Kate. Hi, Dr. Kate.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I'm so glad to be here.
You are so welcome. Thank you for joining me. I am thrilled that you are here to share not only your personal story, but your expertise as a psychologist who brings together families. And in your application, you said that you bring together families who are going through breakdowns, and then you're leaving them after breakthroughs. And I'm thrilled to see what it is that you're doing, the tools and the strategies that you're using. So thank you again for choosing Nailed It Motherhood podcast. I am very interested. You currently have a podcast, or you had a podcast that you hosted, and you are starting or started a new one. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. Yeah. So for the past 3 years, I have been doing a podcast, The Optimized Mind, and it's been awesome, like amazing. And the whole thing is trying to understand resilience through a human lens. So the human experience of resilience has been the focus of the podcast. So I've interviewed folks across domains. I've interviewed lots of parents, authors, corporate folks, entrepreneurs, athletes. Many of my guests, regardless of the domain, have also been parents. And so it's been so cool to see how parenting has kind of factored into the conversation, the aspects of resilience, and all of it. So it's been a great run with the Optimized Mind, but it's extremely broad, as I kind of mentioned. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm starting after the new year a new show called Resilient Parenting with Dr. Kate. And that's going to really focus on this idea of what does resilient parenting look like? And it doesn't look the same for any of us,
Yeah.
right? There's no one size fits all. There's no one size fits all in how to show up as a parent, the parent that your child needs, the parent that you're kind of optimized within your own unique context, all of it. So the podcast is going to be loosely based on my new book, Step Away: The Keys to Resilient Parenting. But, that's basically what that's all about. But I love podcasting, and I love coming on other people's shows. So again, thank you for having me.
I'm super excited. I'm very interested in learning more about this podcast when it does come out because one, you're capturing one of my favorite pastimes, which is storytelling, and just connecting with other people's stories and getting to listen to how they've gone through and how they've pushed through. So I'm very excited about getting to know what you are here to talk to us about in your personal parenting journey. But as always, we're going to do our traditional episodic Tavi Tale segment. And that is the piece where I get to talk about my baby girl, who is my pride and my stress at the same time. So today I do want to share with you a little bit about the life of a musical family. And I'm going to call this Tavi Tale that my life is a musical. So my baby, she is so talented. She's so talented. And if you've listened to podcasts in the past, I did talk about me thinking that she has stage fright, which is very interesting because she's amazing and she's such a social butterfly. But when you put her on a stage in front of people, she kind of shuts down and it's really hard to get her to do what it is that she was intending to do. However, I do really try to push those skills, those acting skills, those singing skills, anything that her dancing skills. She's in gymnastics, she's in cheerleading. She is a true performer, but I'm trying to get her to be comfortable with just using it and making it a natural part of life. So one day we were driving home from school and she was asking me all of these questions and I was just feeling extra goofy that day. So I started to sing all of my responses. And at first, it started to bother her. And she was like, Mom, why are you singing? I said, Tavia. And I sang it. I said, Tavia, because my life is a musical. And I would just keep going. And so then she eventually, instead of fighting it, she joined in. And it was just, it was so fun because we were having a full blown conversation and we were just singing to each other. And I just think that she was able to see that little side of me that was just really extra silly. The little girl that I used to always be, and I would just sing everything, or we would be out in the store and I would just dance. And I just wanted to show her that I have this side too. And it was fun to go back and forth and just see how witty and how clever she is, and just knowing that she actually has the skill where she can go high and she can take it down and she can match what I'm saying. And it was just amazing to watch that talent and just know that, our life really is a musical. And if you ever want to buy it, let me know. And I will I will sell tickets one day to see how we can go back and forth just singing along everyday conversation. So thank you, Dr. Kate, for listening to my silly Tavi tale. That is my baby girl. She will join me in a heartbeat whenever I give her a chance to be silly.
I love that. That is so cool. That is so cool. And I can't wait to hear kind of where she goes and how all of it evolves, right? Because it sounds
You
like
and me
she's
both.
got
You and me
so
both.
much potential. I love it. I love
She
it.
does. She does. And I will make sure to say, hey, Dr. Kate wants to know how you're going to do. So you got to be strong. You have to push through. You have to get through those nerves. But enough about me and my baby girl. I appreciate that you love that joy that I get to share with her. And that's one of the things I love to do is come on the podcast and just talk about the little things that make me smile. But today we are here to listen about your story, your personal parenting journey, and your resilience from childhood all the way to being a parent of two twin boys and 18 years old, Dr. Kate. My goodness, I have to give you credit. I'm not there yet, and I'm already stressed. So, so I'm very excited to hear what you have to say, and I am going to give you the floor, take my notes, and listen to your resilient parenting journey.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, so I think I will start with, just a little overview. I'm a psychologist, I'm a mom, I am an author, and I'm really, really focused on resilience and what helps people to thrive within their own unique context. What helps us all, kids, parents, all of us, to move through and beyond challenge in a way that we're able to see the possibilities on the other side of the challenge. And for me, this fascination, this focus in this area really started way back in my early childhood. When I was 4, I was diagnosed with a medical condition called hydrocephalus. And what that is it means that the cerebral spinal fluid isn't circulating as it should, causing pressure to build up on the brain. So got really sick really fast when I was 4. I had been a happy, active child. Really was baffling to my parents. The imaging technology back in the mid 70s wasn't so good. So it was baffling for the doctors too. But finally, they figured it out. It was hydrocephalus, cerebral spinal fluid wasn't circulating. Good news is this can be managed with something called a shunt, which is a surgically implanted drain in the ventricles of the brain, circulates the fluid for you. Bad news is that shunts break. So my childhood was spent in and out of the hospital, coming back to school, looking different, feeling different, often had half a head of shaved hair, giant glasses. Wasn't easy. But I had great support from my family, my parents, my friends, parents of friends, all of it, teachers. And that was very, very good for me to be able to focus on what I could do as opposed to just what I couldn't do. And so that was a very, very important piece of helping me to move through to my potential. So, focused in this area through school, did volunteer work whenever I could, really was interested in connecting with folks on a human level, really, really important for me. And so, studied psychology in college and loved it, loved every minute of it. Didn't want to go right back to graduate school when I graduated. I had done a semester in Washington, D.C. Um, in broadcast journalism, which was another interest of mine while I was in college. And essentially, I um, didn't want to go, as I mentioned, back to graduate school when I graduated. So I moved to Washington, D.C. and did work in public relations and marketing in broadcast TV. And it was an amazing, amazing experience. Part of that, actually, backtracking, when I was still in college, I had done an internship at the White House, also in communications. And that really fostered my ability to understand people from a different perspective. Met my husband in Washington. We moved to Boston. And I started graduate school to actually become a doctoral level psychologist, and he was working. Then we started moving around a lot with his job. Moved to Connecticut, and that was the point when we decided that, okay, we're ready to have kids.
Mhm.
And I was working in college counseling at the time. And fast forward 2 years, our boys were born, twins, and, it was a super exciting time for us. Super exciting. Having 2 babies at once was stressful, but also invigorating, exciting, and, the thing that was, a little bit dicey with it was that my husband, no sooner had we brought them home from the hospital, he was transferred with his job to another city. So we decided not to move with the boys right away to follow him. So I stayed in Connecticut with my infant twin boys, and he came home on weekends. So we were essentially on our own for 6 days a week. And it was a lot. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't taking good care of myself. I wasn't eating right. And that took a toll. That actually really did take a toll. And it's actually at the heart of my resilient parenting book. The first pillar is to nurture yourself, take care of yourself. But at the same time, the boys and I did the best we could to have as much fun as we could, experience the little joys in life. Not always easy when you're sleep deprived, but um, I like to think of it as an adventure. And so we were out in the car to the next town over to walk along the water every single day, spent like the whole day walking along the water and constantly in Starbucks. Little bit of a downfall for me as a new mom. I drank way too many Starbucks mochas, and that did not do great things for my nutrition. But anyway, fast forward, we moved back to Boston eventually with my husband and continued to kind of have him traveling a lot and the boys and I on our own. I had sort of put my career a little bit on hold. I was doing projects, I was doing contract work, but really my focus was the boys. And eventually, 3 years later, we moved to Seattle. boys were almost 4. We've been here ever since, and it's been a journey. I've been really fortunate in that I've been able to strike a balance that worked for me uh, to foster my career as well as be present and available for them. So it's been a tremendous journey to be involved in their schools, be involved in sports, all of that. One thing that really is important to mention here though is the boys, although they're twins, they're very, very different kids. One struggled a little bit with some learning challenges, the other extremely academic. One struggled a little bit with his eyes, the other one didn't. And so, really helping each child, despite the fact that they're twins and everyone kind of thought they could be grouped together, really to help each of them flourish and thrive within their own unique context was so, so important and something we really started from the get go. And, one of them is applying to college this year, the other one will do it next year. And so, definitely on different timelines, but it's been really important to us to help each of them flourish and thrive within their own unique context. And that's something I've really realized over time for me as a parent. Thriving for me was going to look very different than it was for my best friend or, uh, my brother or anyone else in my circle. And that's a really important piece that I've learned as a mom over time to not compare myself to others and to really do the best that I can do within my own unique context. And it's a really important piece that I share with just about everybody that I work with. So, um, from there, I guess one other piece to mention about my life as a mom, my life in general, is I'm a dog lover. And our dogs have been integral parts of our lives. For me, going back to the point when I was 4 years old, struggling with those medical challenges. Um, but these days, we've got 2 dogs. They're wonderful. They're an amazing part of our family. One of them is a certified therapy dog, and we go out and we volunteer at Seattle Children's Hospital several times a month. And it's honestly one of the most meaningful things I've ever done, and I just absolutely love it, and it's a really, really important piece, I think, of parenting as you're able to find a way that works within your own unique context to give back and then to try to model that for your kids. It's been quite powerful here. So I guess that's me in a nutshell, my parenting journey in a nutshell, and I'm open to answering any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. I'm very interested in learning a little bit more about the framework of your book, Step Away. You mentioned the first pillar being to nurture yourself. And I wanted to know if you can kind of just give us like a very high level breakdown of what the book is about, the framework, the passion behind the framework, and what are the pillars that we can be thinking about. So, we might want to go back and buy that book so we can really understand how we can step away for our own resilient parenting needs.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So the book, right, and I mentioned nurturing yourself as the first pillar. Really the first pillar, and this is part of nurturing yourself, but is to find a way to modulate your stress response. So we want to try to show up even each day and integrate that into our baseline because if we're showing up here and then a challenge or a stressor hits, boom, and we escalate to the point of shutdown, we're not going to really be able to show up for our kids the way we want to or
Mhm.
for ourselves. And so that's the very first pillar. And I teach people to begin to create that modulated stress response with a technique that I really love because it's super easy. It's a technique designed or developed by a physician in Boston in the 1970s. It's called the relaxation response. and super easy to do. You come up with a word or a phrase that you find soothing in some way, and you breathe. And so I have people focus 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes later in the day. And with consistent practice, that helps them to start to integrate that level baseline. And that's not something that I was really doing when I was a brand new mom of twins, not really sleeping very well, and all of that. So over time, the importance of that has been integrated. But the nurturing of yourself layered on top of that is a very, very close second pillar, right? And that means knowing what you need as a mom, as a person to be at your best,
Mm,
understanding your context and knowing what you need to thrive within that context. So, for example, some people don't need as much sleep as others. I need a lot of sleep. So,
me
I
too,
need
Dr. Kate. Me too.
to figure out how to make that happen. And whether that means getting help for, nighttime routines or whatever. And sometimes it's not possible. I mean, I was sleep deprived for many years early. Yeah. And then there are other stories too when the boys hit 4 or 5 and one of them decided he didn't want to sleep or he couldn't
Mm,
sleep or he was scared of the dark. And so, anyway, with my husband traveling and it was just a little bit nuts. But the sleep piece is important, figuring out how to plug that in. Eating on a consistent and regular schedule. I wasn't doing that either back in the early days. And it really did take a toll because, you're tired, you're sleep deprived. Then all of a sudden, the kids are maybe exposed to other children or other babies, and then you catch a nasty germ, which I did numerous times, and you're flat out. So,
mhm.
really paying attention to those things as best as possible, super important. And those were lessons that I learned early on. Um, so that kind of stuff is certainly touched on in the book, but the pieces that really I go deep on are the understanding of ourselves, what we need to thrive, the
Mhm.
idea of not comparing ourselves to others, and really being able to mm, zero in on, you know, our own unique context and be content in that context and understanding our kids and their context and the fact that all of our kids might need different things. There's no child that's going to be the exact same as the other child in a family or siblings or otherwise, right? And so that's really, really important. And then that whole idea of asking for help, social
Yes.
support, trying to become part of a community that makes sense for you. Really, really important piece. Movement, whatever that looks like for you. Keeping in mind there's really no one size fits all in any of this. And that's how I work with folks on a very individual level, figuring out how they can thrive within their own context, but first helping them to understand that context because sometimes we're moving so fast through life that we miss that, right? We're just like kind of like doing, as opposed to taking that step back. We talk a lot about from that level baseline, responding instead of reacting to the things that are happening, to the challenges that come up. And then, you know, really, really helpful and important to experience bits and pieces of joy during the day, during each day if possible, but doing making sure that that's a part of your life. Really, really important. And again, moving so fast through life, we often forget that. And so those are really, really important pieces that we talk about throughout Step Away. Because what we're doing is we're creating that space, we're creating that perspective as we're caring for ourselves in a way to optimize our well being and our function. And we're modeling these things for our kids. And I also should mention that another thing we talk a lot about is that authentic human connection with our kids that we want to foster in a very real way from a very early age. And that's going to look different across developmental levels, but definitely something that we want to be focused on and fostering. And then hobbies, interests, things that we love to do that bring us joy could be music, could be art, could be exercise or fitness, could be so many different things, but really important to inter, inter, interface that with our lives as much as possible. So that's really an overview of step away in a nutshell. But really, as we're stepping away, we're giving ourselves the ability to step in more robustly and to show up more fully in the way that we want to for our kids and our family.
So I'm very excited to hear the framework of your book because it is so connected to Nailed It Motherhood podcast when we're talking about just making sure that we're nurturing ourselves and really understanding what it is that we need to succeed. And we're talking about knowing that our stories and our lives are unique to us and it's not the same as somebody else's. So we need to hone in on what works for us when we're talking about community, when we're talking about asking for help, when we're talking about just sleep
Mhm.
and figuring out what it is that's really that you're missing, that's jump excuse me, that's pushing your parenting journey to a different level. I love this book already, and I really want to get it and to really understand more about the book. You also mentioned knowing what you need to be at your best is a
Mhm.
huge part of nurturing yourself. But you also said that when you were talking about understanding your boys and how different they are. And I
Yes.
love that. Do you
Mhm.
talk about that in the book as well? Just the connection between you getting to know you and then
Mhm.
you having to get to know both of your boys and what they needed in their unique personalities.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely talk about that in the book. I don't go as in deep depth about that as I could perhaps, but it's definitely referenced throughout because it is
Yeah,
true. My
absolutely.
boys are very different,
Very
but
different.
each awesome in their own way, right? And so just, it's a question of figuring out what they each needed to thrive within their own unique context. And, it's obviously evolving. They're 18, but it's going well. And it's
Yeah.
cool to see how each of them is moving in their own unique direction.
Do you find yourself having to pause before handling different situations with your boys and kind of like regroup yourself to become the parent that that particular child needs?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I would say for sure because, they're just different in what they need. One of them needs a bit more support, a bit more help with certain things, than the other one's much more independent. And so sometimes I have to stop myself when I want to ask him, "Oh, well, how's that going?" When I know that he's got it handled. And then the
Yeah.
other one, sometimes I'll want to say, well, I think you got this, buddy. You know what I mean? I think, yes, well, and I'm here for more questions, but so it's a question of striking that balance, right? And
Yeah.
absolutely kind of thinking about those things. Yeah, it comes up all the time.
How do they support each other with being so different?
Yeah, it's really cool because they're really different, but they're very close. And so here's the thing. One of them I mentioned is a junior in high school this year, and the other one is a senior. The junior actually chose to go to boarding school in Connecticut. We're in Seattle.
Mhm.
So he is in boarding school right now in Connecticut, and he's the one who struggled with some learning stuff early. And this experience has been amazing for him, like, absolutely amazing because he's really come into his own, he's flourishing academically. They're both rowers, so their crew is their sport, so they row, and, one of them was rowing for a club team here, the other one was rowing for his school team, and kinda they talked about it sometimes, this, that, and the other. But now that one of them is on the other side of the country, it's really brought them together. They talk all the time. One of them will call, if one's driving home from school, the other one will, get on a call. They'll talk about practice. They'll talk about how to, you know, be at their best or whatever, and really, really supporting each other across domains, but particularly in rowing. And it's so fun to watch.
That sounds pretty awesome that you were able to really give each of your children their own pathways and they're able to thrive in their own way. That's amazing. So kudos to you for that. You talked about your husband taking a job away from the family and not being around for 6 days out of a week. We all know there's only 7 days. So that is a long time to have to really be a single parent at the time with 2 boys, not just 1 newborn, but 2 newborns,
Yeah.
up to about 4 years old, did you say, before you moved to Seattle?
Yeah, yeah, that was it. Yep.
What was that conversation like with your husband when you were trying to navigate those challenges and just what did that do for your relationship? Did it make it harder to bond? Did it make it like what were the challenges that you had in communicating with him if you felt like maybe he's not doing enough or whatever the case was? You tell
Yeah,
me what that experience was like.
yeah, it was challenging, I'll tell you. Because I was exhausted, and He he would often come home from these trips, like, clueless about what the week had been and and I'm not saying he didn't try, he really
Mhm.
did try, but, just completely, just clueless because he was living he was working, he was, living in a hotel, he was, doing and so it was I'll give you one example of how this kind of played out on one particular arrival home. He arrives home, and we had a crazy week, and one of my boys had some real gastrointestinal stuff related. It turned out to be a severe gluten sensitivity.
Mhm.
So I think on that particular week we'd even had an ER visit and had to get a neighbor to watch my other son while he was sleeping because we were at the hospital all night and all these things. So it was just a lot going on that week. And I mean, my husband knew, and he's very supportive. I mean, he really did try, but just clueless, gets home, walks in the door, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, great. How's the week? Da-da-da-da. Oh, okay, by the way, in 2 weeks I'll be going to China for, a 3-week trip." Just clueless. And so I sort of lost my mind. You know what I mean? I sort of
Yeah.
got a little bit upset. I did
Right.
not create that space for myself to respond as opposed to react. But remember, it was the early days.
Mhm.
So I reacted as opposed to responded. Our dog at the time, who was a 6-year-old Airedale, was sitting on this ottoman in front of my husband, who was sitting in this chair, goes over, puts her paws around his neck, and hugs him. My dog. My dog hugs him in the midst of this chaos. Yeah, it's still a story we tell today because I mean, that's not cool. I mean, right? I'm struggling.
Your dog did not have your back.
I'm struggling, and the dog hugs him. So, yeah, and that just, but so we had to communicate. He had to understand what was, when he was home, very engaged, very, and he still travels. He's here right now, and he's very close to the boys, and it's just different angles on the relationship. But those early days, those were hard.
Yeah.
Those were really hard because, and then when we moved to Seattle, he was still traveling. And that was when the boys hit 4, and one of them decided he couldn't sleep alone. So I had to, like, be in their room forever. I was still sleep
Yes.
deprived. It was, like, crazy. But yeah, it's just the way it went, and I was lucky to be able to strike the balance that I was with, working a little bit more part-time, fewer hours during those years, and and so that was fortunate. But yeah, it was a bit crazy.
Yeah. Talk about resilience. You talk about resilient parenting. You have, especially when your dog doesn't even have your back.
Oh
You have to
man.
say, "Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Was I that wrong? Was I that wrong to blow up?"
Right, right. And yeah, and then off he went to China and yeah, the whole thing. So yeah, it was a lot. But we
Yeah,
did the best we could. And we're still here 28 years later. I mean, the boys aren't
that's
28,
awesome.
but we've been married for 28 years. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
What do you like, do you look back on that story and just laugh and look at your growth from that?
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. And we'll tell that every once in a while, you know what I mean, in a point where it feels like relevant to bring it up. But sure, absolutely.
I'm not gonna lie, Dr. Kate, when you said the dog went to him and wrapped his little paws behind his neck, I thought the dog was gonna attack because I thought the dog was on your side and was
No,
like, "And this is what you get."
the
But it was
dog
the
bailed on me.
complete opposite.
The
Totally
dog
bailed on
bailed.
you.
The dog
When
bailed on me. It's so sad. Yeah.
when they say man's best friend, they literally mean it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh man. So we're gonna jump into our tea time, but before we do, listeners, in case you missed it, our conversation might sound a little chopped and screwed because we had some tech issues this episode. I don't know what was going on, but they were trying us in this conversation. But before we do go to our tea time game, I would love again for you to just share a little bit more about your newest podcast, Resilient Parenting with Dr. Kate. Tell us a little bit of what that will look like for us once we go over to your page and listen to your new podcast.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. It's gonna be the podcast is gonna be loosely based on my book, Step Away: The Keys to Resilient Parenting. And so it's gonna be a combination of solo episodes, which is gonna be a stretch for me, but I'm doing that on purpose to, be more focused on storytelling and making things engaging and relevant, and then interviews with parents
Awesome.
around the very issues that we outline, as being important: nurturing ourselves, understanding ourselves. What are the ways that parents are living out there within their own unique context in a resilient way, which allows them to thrive and flourish? So that's the podcast in a nutshell. And it's, I hope, going to be a lot of fun. And well, I know it's going to be a lot of fun. And really, I'm excited about it.
I'm happy for you. That sounds like an amazing podcast. I love the fact that you've lived a resilient life. You've had hydrocephalus and then you've fallen into the psychology piece where, you had a condition of your mind, but then you have this focus on the mind and the behaviors of our minds. And then you're moving to being able to really talk to people about how they can be relaxed and how they can center themselves and how they can change the way that their responses shape their environments with strategies and with tools that you're giving from Step Away. And then I'm excited to hear how you are molding all of these into this podcast where you are showing your expertise and having your solo piece, but also talking to people and getting to know who they are and even getting to pour back into their experience. Last thing before we get into the game, I love the fact that you are giving back and you are able to go and visit people that are going through things with your therapy dog, something that is meaningful. I just love that basically it's been full circle for you. It's
Mhm.
you and I love in your TED talk where you talked about where you didn't feel ordinary, but you've gotten to the point where your ordinary is extraordinary, and now you can extraordinarily give back through just being there for people, having your therapy dog be there and just let people know there's somebody here that understands what you may be going through, and you have a village and you have a community. I love that for you. And I thank you, even though we haven't had that personal encounter, I thank you for that because we need people like that in this world that are just providing meaningful connection with other people. So, with that being said, we are going to play tea time. So,
Sweet.
tea time is a game of rapid fire. I have a bucket full of questions, and Dr. Kate does not know these questions. So she's going to be just as surprised as we are, listeners, to hear what her responses will be. She will have 3 minutes to answer as many questions as she can within that time frame so that we all can just get a little insight into who she is. So I have 3 minutes on the screen so Dr. Kate can see that I'm not making up the time. I'm being wholeheartedly honest with the time so that she has 3 minutes like everybody else. Dr. Kate, are you ready to play the game?
I am. Yes.
Awesome. I am ready to hear what you have to say. So let's go ahead and begin. First question: morning person or night owl?
Oh my goodness. Morning person.
Oh, I'm usually, well, it's a mix. If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Hmm. Ooh. Cooking.
Cooking. I love you. Ooh, ooh, ooh. If you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Hmm. Believe in the possibilities. Believe in yourself always.
I love it. What small thing brings you joy?
Ooh. Sitting with my dog.
I love that. What cartoon shaped your childhood?
Ooh. Fred Flintstone.
Yes. I love that too. What always makes you giggle?
Hmm. Again, watching my dog do funny things.
Your dog is a funny character.
Yes,
What
yes, he is.
what is your comfort go-to food?
Wow. So I would say pizza.
Pizza. Pizza, pizza. Name your life's Broadway play.
My life's Broadway play. Ex- Extravaganza.
Extravaganza. What is the last TV show or movie you binge watched?
Oh, I would say, you know what it was? Northern Exposure, and there were a lot of episodes.
Northern Exposure. You'll have to tell me more about that. I don't think I've seen that. Okay. You are rocking these questions. What smell instantly makes you happy?
Ooh, apple pie.
That sounds yummy. This is a long one. I have to unfold it a couple times. You see a social media post of a controversial parenting choice. Are you the perfect parent troll, the one that always says that it should be this way, or the gotta figure out what works for you parent?
You got to figure out what works for you, parent.
Name one book, podcast, or resource that's changed your perspective.
Hmm. Every Day's a Train Wreck by
Ooh,
Marley Major, the podcast.
I love
Changed
it.
my perspective for sure. Yep.
Awesome. So there's 2 seconds on the clock. So tell me, high level, how did it change your perspective and why?
It changed my perspective because it shows all of the things that can come up, all of the challenges that we can have that can sometimes there can be a lot of levity, a lot of room for growth, but room for kind of laughter and fun at the same time, but that's not always evident on the surface. And
Yeah.
she really hits that reality so well. And I love that podcast.
Awesome. That's every day is a train wreck. I might have to check that out. Sounds like the story of my life, especially after today's episode. Well, thank you so much for playing tea time. Your answers were great. Before we go, I do want to give you back the mic so that you can share any words of encouragement, any inspiration, or any motivation for anybody who's a parent or caregiver. What do you want to leave us with from Dr. Kate?
Yeah, so I would leave you with this idea of believing in the possibility on the other side of challenge and appreciate your own unique context and that of your child as well.
I love it. I love it. And I feel like this is like one of your life's mantras because you've said it so much, but it's so powerful. And I love that. Believe on the other side of the possibilities of challenge. I love it. So parents, remember that. Remember that you have to remember your own unique context and you have to remember the context of your child. Your children are not you and your children are not each other. Everybody has their own path and they have to figure it out with the help of you as the parent. Thank you so much for sharing those words of wisdom, which we will hold on to after this episode. It was wonderful. I appreciated our chat. And I do have three questions that I always leave parents with. I want to know, what's the research say? Is parenting hard?
Absolutely. Yes,
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. But are they still standing though?
they are. Yes, they are. They are.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What do you want to proudly shout to our guests today then?
This mama is nailing it.
Nailing it. That is wonderful. Before I go out, can you tell us how our listeners can connect to you and what is next for you?
Sure, absolutely. So my website is a great spot. So it's www.katelundspeaks.com. And so that's a great spot. And also, very much, I'm available on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Wonderful. And I will make sure that I have these links right in the description of wherever you're listening to the podcast so you can directly connect to Dr. Kate Lund. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for pushing through all of the tech issues. And thank you for being transparent and sharing your own personal parenting journey. Listeners, if you like this episode and you want to hear more personal parenting journeys like that of Dr. Kate, make sure that you subscribe to my social media at Nailed It Motherhood Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We also have our website that will be naileditmotherhoodpodcast.com, your one stop shop for all things Nailed It Motherhood, including our brand new Nailed It Motherhood shop, where you can grab your journals, hey, self care journals, your merch, and more to support your own parenting journey. We welcome your questions, your comments, and your ideas, and we definitely hope to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep on doing what it is you do. Smooches.